Films about artificial intelligence can usually be sharply divided into two categories. The first category is the Frankenstein's monster approach you see in movies like this year's Avengers Age of Ultron. Humans create AI, and that AI promptly decides that humankind should be destroyed. The second type is the robots are people too approach that was used in this year's Chappie, where the ethical implications of sentient AI are explored. With the former approach, you usually get mediocre thriller and action movies, but occasionally you see films that take this premise and still do something entertaining with it. The latter approach is often more interesting overall, but as with Chappie, this approach can sometimes become sappy and one-sided, often serving as a metaphor for types of human prejudice rather than a serious attempt to deal with the philosophical implications of AI. The truth is, a serious movie about artificial intelligence would have to deal with both sides of the coin, and Ex Machina attempts to do that. I feel that Ex Machina merely scratches the surface, and I wasn't as taken with the movie as some other people were, but there is enough interesting ideas in the film to put it ahead of the majority of movies that deal with artificial intelligence. Ex Machina is the directorial debut of screenwriter Alex Garland, and he keeps the story simple, only involving three characters. A programmer named Caleb is chosen by his employer Nathan, creator of a Google-like search engine, to test his newest artificial intelligence Ava at his isolated compound. Nathan, it turns out, is manipulating Caleb because he relies on Caleb not knowing his true intent to test whether Ava indeed has consciousness. The idea is to see how Ava and Caleb interact with each other and whether they develop a real bond. Without going too much into the story mechanics, Ex Machina plays like a thriller, albeit a low-key one. The ending, in which Caleb and Ava trick Nathan and she kills Nathan and leaves Caleb locked in the compound, was disappointing to me because it reduces Ava to merely a femme fatale. It is notable that all of Nathan's attempts to create AI are in the form of women, and he even has a sex bot assistant. This component has led to Ex Machina being discussed more in terms of how it relates to gender, but this is only a superficial theme in the film. It does, however, point to what the theme the movie really wants to explore is. The idea of sexualized robots is common in movies about AI, to the point that Pris in Blade Runner is famously referred to as your basic pleasure model casually. Nathan designed Ava to be sexually enticing to Caleb and made her capable of having sex and even deriving pleasure from it. However, the question remains why this would be a necessary part of designing a robot with consciousness. The reason that the robot has sexuality is because Nathan cannot imagine a conscious being without sexuality. This brings us to the central theme and problem the movie wants to explore. How can we really tell if an AI is a conscious being when we, 1, do not even really know what consciousness is, and 2, only have the standard of human consciousness to base this on? There is the basic idea that AI might have a version of consciousness that is so radically different than human consciousness that we may not immediately recognize it. The fact that Garland was working along the lines of this theme is confirmed by his original ending. In the movie, there is a scene where after Ava escapes the compound, she talks with a helicopter pilot who has come to get Caleb. Originally, the scene had a POV shot from Ava's perspective that showed her experiencing the scene in a totally different way than humans perceive things. For some reason or another, Garland decided to cut this. Ava was designed by Nathan to fit his idea of what a conscious being is. The name Ava is a Hebrew form of Eve. In fact, all three of the characters' names are Hebrew, with Nathan meaning gift from God. The idea is that Ava was created to try and mimic human beings. This is what a Turing test is after all. But Garland is interested in the idea of what would set AI apart from humans as much as the attempt to make them approximate humans. The center of Ava's torso is transparent, so you can literally see inside her, but this doesn't allow the two men to ever understand or experience what her consciousness is really like. Caleb recounts the famous Mary's Room thought experiment by philosopher Frank Jackson for Ava. In this thought experiment, Jackson proposes the scenario of a woman named Mary who has been raised from birth in a completely black and white room. In the room, she learns everything there is to know about color from a scientific perspective, but never experiences the actual raw feeling, what philosophers refer to as qualia, of seeing color. It presented with a red rose, would she even know what she was seeing? The thought experiment is about experience as it pertains to knowledge, but Caleb changes the experience to Ava emerging from her room and experiencing the outside world for the first time. She was made to be as close to human as possible, but she can never be human. She is really something else, and that makes Nathan's attempt to test her somewhat flawed. In truth, we still do not understand what human consciousness is or how it works. We know that consciousness is produced by the brain, but the experience of consciousness is not accounted for by the physical workings of the brain. This has led some to call consciousness an illusion. In that sense, it is like a movie itself, made of single frames projected at 24 frames per second. Each frame is a still image, but but the speed at which each frame is projected creates the illusion of experiencing cohesive movement. Nathan has created Ava, assembling each of the parts that have made her, but we cannot make sense of the whole that is her consciousness. It is telling that part of what Nathan would consider proof of consciousness is an ability to deceive. He believes that Ava's ability to get Caleb to help her escape is proof that she has a consciousness like a human. He even says to Caleb, "Does she like you, or is she pretending to like you?" This is a question that Caleb cannot answer until the end of the movie, when it is all too cruelly revealed. Nathan's entire plan is about deceiving Caleb. This is how he is, an arch manipulator, and therefore his perception of what would make an AI sufficiently human is dictated by things about himself, just as he sees sexuality as a necessary part of a conscious being. We, in fact, do not even know the minds of those humans that we interact with on a daily basis, not even the people we think we are closest to. So how can we know the mind of a robot? These are all interesting questions Ex Machina asks, though I was disappointed by how slavishly the movie conforms to the structure of a thriller, and by how simple and pat the ending turned out to be. Still, it is one of the smarter movies about AI ever made. My next two videos will deal with Steven Spielberg's film AI Artificial Intelligence and Ridley Scott's film Blade Runner to get a wider perspective on the subject.